Okay, today we're talking about Nechal Chai for Bishul Akum. That's one of the two main rules about which foods don't eat Bishul Yisrael, are those which are Nechal Chai. So I'm going to talk to you about a whole bunch of different foods that sort of applies to. Okay, people who, when you drink milk, if you look at it, well, the world looks at it and they drink a bottle of milk. Hold on one second, I'm sorry. They drink a bottle of milk, they assume that milk is raw. It doesn't look like it's cooked, it just seems like plain milk. But in fact, the milk that just about everybody drinks has been pasteurized, which is, like, think about Hilchos Shabbos wise, we think that it's cooked, and of course it is, it's considered that it had bishul to it. So we never eat, the milk that we have is always cooked. So that means to say is, Poskim 100 years ago spoke about whether things made with milk need to be Bishul Yisrael. They said, no, of course not, that's Nechal Chai. You just drink milk, you squeeze it from the cow and you drink it. But our milk, we always eat, our milk is not Nechal Chai. We never drink milk that's raw. So maybe it needs to be Bishul Yisrael. So they asked Stein Weiss this question, and they said to him, what do you think? So he basically says, you're right, how can it need to be Bishul Yisrael? I mean, he had a limud chos to explain why people are makel, but he said, yeah, Takan's right. No needs it raw. No needs raw milk. And in truth, nobody makes milk Bishul Yisrael. For sure not B'chol Stam milk, but not even B'chol Yisrael milk. You know, the Mashgiach sin. I mean, to my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think anybody makes it Bishul Yisrael. So what's the reason why? What would be the reason to think not like why shouldn't it be Bishul Yisrael?
I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'm saying.
Say what you want.
Because there's no, even when you cook it, there's nothing visible that's changed before you cooked it and after you cooked it.
You mean, what do you mean visible? What do you expect it to be?
I'm saying it's not like
no improvement.
So you know, let's say potato. Let's say you couldn't tell a potato
right.
raw cooked. So then would you say that it's
Visual
you could tell.
improving through heat.
No,
you
could look at it and see it's a different material.
Visual is
Milk,
improving through heat.
only when it's cooked. The only way you can see it's a different material is under a microscope.
No, it tastes different. It doesn't taste the same.
but it
Significantly
ruins it.
different?
Yeah, it doesn't taste the
ruins
same.
It's a technicality
ruins
that
it.
you need to do it in order that it shouldn't get spoiled, but technically everyone will drink it if you
Okay,
get it
so-
fresh.
so
it
whether-
also ruins it.
It doesn't taste as good. Okay, what
I got
people don't
fried.
talk about,
Really?
but
Yeah.
what doesn't taste as good.
Why don't you get some
To the extent, I one time had raw milk.
And?
I didn't really taste much of a difference.
To you, it tastes the same.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't, analyze. I didn't have both in front of me to compare. But
Okay.
Are we able to get Chal Yisrael raw?
Berthel, doesn't Berthel sell?
Not really.
Does it who?
It's like
Bethel.
illegal.
You're at the front. You're at the front. You're there.
It's coming in as much as
You
they
get the there when
can
they change the hoses. Like you got just it spills on the floor like quarters.
sells raw milk out of
But
his
you wanted to try it or just
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Okay.
call of Israel.
Okay, guys, let's pull it together. Okay. So what the shot goes like this. So here we're going to back up to talk about something we've talked about way before. Some of you probably know about this, and that'll help us understand what to do with the milk. Okay. So this Heter says that agasin, which in modern Hebrew means pears, maybe it does or maybe it doesn't. That agasim don't need to be Bishul Yisrael because people eat them raw. And then he says, and also the hard agasim, okay, whatever that means, even though people eat them cooked, it's still okay because they could also be eaten raw. Okay? So what does he mean when he says they don't need to be Bishul Yisrael because they could also be eaten raw? So what does he mean? So he doesn't mean that it's nechal deit chak, because the Gemara has a shayla about nechal deit chak, and we paskin that food that's nechal deit chak is not considered edible raw. Okay, so when he says they could be eaten raw, he doesn't mean that you could get by eating it raw. He doesn't mean that. Okay, because that's not the din. The din is something that's nechal deit chak is not considered nechal chak. So Rabelsky said what he means is like this. He means is it's a food that is perfectly edible, raw or cooked. Either way is perfectly fine. People happen to like the cooked version better. So basically, everybody eats it cooked. People always eat it cooked. But it's edible raw. There's nothing bad, there's nothing about it, the raw state that makes it not edible. We just happen to like the food better. Okay, we happen to like it better this way. And that this Heter is telling you, this is important in the Shach, this Heter is telling you that that's also considered Nechal Chai. Because etzem it's edible raw. It's not, it just happened to like it this way. But there's two versions and people eat that way. Okay, and the example, the real example we have of this Heter is sweet corn. Sweet corn is the kind of corn that's like corn on the cob, corn in a can. lafuke, the corn that you make everything else from, like that you make corn chips and what? Tortillas and things like that. All that's a different kind of corn. But sweet corn is almost everybody eats it cooked. Okay, you get cooked in the hand. Of course, it's cooked. And if you eat it corn on the cob, almost everybody cooks it. Okay, but most people are surprised to find out that it's completely edible raw. It tastes perfectly fine when you eat it without cooking it. So that's an example of here. That's an example of this ism heter. That it's something that's complete. It's fine to eat it cooked. I'm sorry, it's fine to eat it raw. People happen to prefer it in the cooked version, so they actually cook it. But it's edible raw, and therefore it doesn't. The canned corn, which is the shiloh for, it doesn't need to be bishul yisrael because it's considered nechachai. Okay, so
you say it's like edible raw, or what does it mean that it's perfectly fine?
No, it's really.
No, I know about corn. I'm not asking about corn. I'm asking about the general rule. I'm saying the general rule.
It's a food that tastes fine raw, tastes fine. People like it better cooked.
It's just a preference.
A preference. It's just a preference. So since it's a preference, he says that's considered nechachai. It is edible raw. It's just because most people have to like it the other way. It doesn't take away from it.
I like the way you say most people. What happens if everybody?
So I'm coming to everybody in a second. Okay. So
with the milk, it's not. It's more than a preference. People are makbid to have because of the sakana. If you don't,
but that has nothing to do with taste. It's not because it's not edible raw. So I'm about to say the milk, it has nothing to do with the taste. It's not like it's inedible, like you said, potato. People can't eat raw potatoes. It's not that we don't choose to eat raw potatoes. We can't eat raw potatoes. But milk, we can eat it this way or that way. It doesn't make a difference which way we would eat it. We happen to prefer it this way. The preference here happens to be because of the safety of it. But that has nothing to do with it. We prefer this way because for some reason, but we eat it either way, we'd be okay.
So you're equating safety to taste, a preference in taste, to a preference in safety.
It's even better if it's a preference in safety. I mean, from taste-wise, I would eat it both ways.
Well, and you could look at the other way, which is what he's saying, is that it's not just a preference, it's a hakpada.
It's a hakpada, and therefore...
If it's a hakpada, then they don't want to eat it that way.
That's
Whereas
interesting.
if it's a preference, they don't
Okay,
want to eat it.
I didn't think of it like that, but okay, I guess you could say it like that. Okay, now, Rabbi Shachta asked a question back to the corn before we get finish with the milk. He asked a question. He says, this that the Issa Heter says that it's okay that the food is because you could eat it. People eat it raw. At least some people have to still be eating raw. If nobody eats it raw, he says, then how can you say that it's nechachai? He says we're saying the thing is nechachai because in theory you could eat it. You could eat it raw. He says, but if there's zero people out there, there's nobody out there doing it, then what are you talking about? How can he say it's nechachai? It's like a strange thing to say that. Okay, so he was not so happy about the sweet corn, but then. We went
about the sweet corn.
About the sweet corn.
Nobody eats corn, raw corn.
So we did a survey. So we did a survey. Wait a second. That was his question. He says.
I thought he was on the milk.
No, he was not. He didn't talk about milk. He talked about sweet corn. So he says the corn. He says nobody eats it raw. So if nobody eats it, then it's not nechachai. So we did a survey. It turned out that 6% of the people said they do it all the time, and 13% of the people said they do it. Yeah, sometimes. Like to them, that's so. Whatever. So that's enough. There's a.
In the OU office, like what was it?
Yeah.
No.
Who are you surveying?
I've eaten sweet corn raw.
No, we did. It was from CRC's social media accounts. We did a survey to ask people what they think, and we just asked the world out there what they thought. So there is if it's edible raw. If the preference is to eat it cooked, like he just eats it. My kids eat it all the time. That's not an issue. And there's a sizable some kind of minority who does eat it like that. So that's good enough. Okay. So then we go back to the milk. It's not so clear. Okay. In the milk, we didn't do a survey to ask people if they eat raw milk, but there are other people out there in the world who have done that, and it turns out that according to what I read, 4.4% have eaten raw milk once in the past year. Okay, and one
not pasteurized.
Right, raw, just straight from the cow.
Are these farmers or not?
I don't know.
We all know people that are makbid to eat unpasteurized milk.
Okay, so even a small percent do it all the time. Okay, so maybe that'll be up in the air whether it is or is not enough to say there's a minority of people who eat it that should qualify for this thing. Okay, now for milk per se, that's not really our shiloh. The shiloh be'etzim is not really because milk, maybe I'm wrong, is not oil shochem. Okay, the milk itself, straight milk. But the shiloh would more be for cheese. Okay, more shiloh would be for cheese because cheese is oil shochem. And the cheese, of course, when you make cheese, you start with milk, but the milk is pasteurized beforehand. Okay, again, there's some cheeses that are made without pasteurized milk, but come on, all cheese, the milk is pasteurized first. So the shiloh really is not for the milk per se. You could drink milk. You're okay with the milk. The shiloh is for the cheese. So there, it's easier. the fact that it's pasteurized has like almost nothing to do with the taste. The change in taste of the milk, Jussie says even the milk tastes the same. But but for the taste to the cheese is like mama's like it's going to have zero effect on the cheese. But whether they made my mozzarella cheese with pasteurized milk or unpasteurized milk is like mama's going to make no difference. So maybe it's a question over there whether that is or not. Okay.
What does Bishul Yisrael have to do with the taste?
What does that mean? If you wouldn't eat a food raw, then it needs cooking to make it edible. That would mean that something significant happened over here. Okay, let's move on to some other. They're related. We're going to move to related foods. They're a little bit different. Okay, so we'll move to the next food is cranberries. Okay, most people consider cranberries to be much too tart to eat by themselves. Okay, they're not the kind of food that people snack on, but people drink them as cranberry juice and cranberry sauce, both of which are sweetened. Okay, you can't. Most people wouldn't eat it by itself, but the tartness is balanced with the sweetness. You add a lot of sugar to it, and
my wife makes a like a side in a dish all the time with raw cranberries.
And that's the only thing that's in there.
It's primary.
It's raw cranberries and
cranberry ground up, and there's also a few other ingredients, there's sugar and whatever. But
sugar.
But
Craisins?
It's definitely the primary ingredient.
Okay.
Really?
I'm coming.
I can share
Cut up
the
raw
recipe.
those
It's really
bowls.
good. Yeah.
Is that
Cranberries.
craisins?
It's really good. It tastes
Coming to
very
craisins
good.
also. Give me a second. I'm coming to both of it. Okay, I know your exact case, but okay. So let's just one thing at a time. Cranberry juice doesn't need to be Bishul Yisrael, of course, because liquids don't need to. When you turn it into a juice, that's a thesis. It doesn't need to. Once you make it into a liquid, that's already doesn't need Bishul Yisrael.
The milk is different.
What do you say?
Milk is different.
Well, of course, you didn't make it into a liquid.
Only because
It is a liquid.
As a solid and
Yeah, of course, because the Tyson's the way you take grain and you turn it into a beer, so you
Zebal.
disappeared. I don't know what you want to call it. It's nothing anymore, just water. It's flavored water, but that milk is not flavored water. Milk is milk. It just is water. Yeah. Okay. So what about cranberry sauce, which is Thanksgiving? That's like the official Michael you have to eat. So what's with that?
But it's not the main. Cranberry sauce is usually eaten with something else.
Correct. I'm coming to you. Yeah, I'm coming. Okay. So the at one point what they decided to save the day why the cranberry sauce didn't Bishul Yisrael was because in the late 80s the people who grow cranberries had too many cranberries and they had to think of what should we do with all these cranberries? What should we do with them? So they came up with craisins. Okay, which was they take cranberries and they dry them out like a raisin, but nobody would eat that. But they infuse them with sugar, and a lot of them do it without cooking. It's infused with sugar, so you could eat it. So it has this. It's a food you could eat it high. All of a sudden you could eat it raw, and a fair amount of people do it, and people consider it to be a reasonable meichel without any cooking to it. And that was a better version of what Yochanan was saying about his wife making this recipe that has cranberries, because that was a really small amount. That was like on the back of the bag. They tried to convince you of something to do with your cranberries. But then they came up with this whole industry thing. We make craisins out of them. That was again a way to sell cranberries. So that was okay. That's satisfied everybody. What would happen before we don't know. But when they came up with craisins, everyone became happy. Okay, now we could justify why it doesn't need Bishul Yisrael. Okay. But
even though it needs like sweetening and stuff, that's not gonna make it.
So what? It doesn't. You can eat it without cooking. You don't have to cook it. You just eat it.
Even though it needs to be added, other things can't eat it by itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without cooking. You could eat it without cooking.
How is it added without cooking?
How would you add
The sugar without cooking.
Probably by infusing. You just soak it in liquid sugar, and it'll eventually just make its way into the.
You would use that as an ingredient in something else.
No,
it wouldn't make it considered nechel chai, or only because it's eaten as a primary ingredient.
If you use it in something else, so that would be depending on what I'm about to say. Maybe yes and maybe not. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, so another explanation comes from the children of Shlomo Kluger. Pretty well known if you're learning these dinim of Bishul Akum, talking about sugar. Why doesn't sugar need Bishul Yisrael? Because it's cooked. So he wants to know why it doesn't need Bishul Yisrael. So he says, now what I'm going to say is not exactly what he says. We're going to draw something from what he says. What do you say?
Is it in nechel chai?
It's cooked, but it's always cooked. When you make it for processing from the sugar cane, what? There's talk about that maybe because I'm not talking about sugar per se. I'm talking about what he says. His reason why he wants to say sugar is okay.
Because people who grow sugar down in wherever it is, sometimes they would chew on sugar cane.
So that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Maybe it's nechachai. That's not. I'm not focusing on whether sugar needs b'shrei yisrael. I'm talking about his reason. One of his reasons to say sugar doesn't need b'shrei yisrael, and he says it's because. So Yochanan is going to miss your big day. You could leave because you know everything I'm about to say, but you could. So he says the reason is because the sugar. No one eats sugar at shulchan lachem by itself. He says the reason why we care whether food is oil or shulchan lachem is because we say if the guy prepared me this food that's not nechachai and that's oil or shulchan lachem, I feel a special connection and appreciation to what he did for me, and therefore it'll draw us close to each other and potentially could lead to chasnas. Okay, but he says, but if I have a food that is not nechachai or not, that's nechachai or that's not oil or shulchan lachem, I don't feel so connected to him for what he did for me. So he says that whole connection, that special connection I feel to him because it's oil shulchan lachem is when the food itself is oil shulchan lachem. I have a piece of meat. He made me this piece of meat. That's chashav. He said, but if it's a food that's always a toffel, like the sugar is always toffel to other things. You don't eat sugar, spoonfuls of sugar. So you disagree.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, sometimes restaurants had the sugar cubes packed in paper.
Yes.
And they'd have it here. So I remember as a kid taking
right.
it down.
Exactly. So as a kid, that's what you did. Exactly. That's correct. 100%. But at shulchan lachem, they don't serve it as a dish to serve at shulchan lachem. I'm not saying that no one would eat it. I'm not saying people don't eat it. Right? Go down the candy aisle. It's a whole aisle full of sugar. Right? That's the whole aisle. But the point is, at shulchan lachem, you don't serve that food. So he wants to say now. Again, Rosh Hashanah doesn't say exactly what I'm saying. We're a little stretching what he says. But the idea is that if a food is always toffel to other food, it's always al shulchan lachem as a toffel, then it maybe wouldn't count. And so cranberry sauce.
What's honey? Does the more talk about honey?
What that honey? Yeah.
The more says it's not el shulchan lachem because nechachai.
I don't know what the Gemara says about it, but I don't know how people ate it. I can't tell you what that is. Maybe, but he. So for us.
Trying to say the dvash always will be a toffel.
It's only if it's more.
Right, I don't know. Okay, so again, and Rosh Hashanah really actually talks about that. He talks about dvash. So that's what we're stretching what he says because he has, but it has to have malaf somebody's apas. He has a different hezbollah than what everybody else holds like. So I'm ignoring that. Okay, that's you have to read on the bottom here if you want. Okay, but anyhow, so that would be a justification for cranberry sauce because again nobody eats cranberry sauce. Again, there's probably somebody who scoops some out of the bowl and eats some straight. But the way you eat a shulchan lachem is always as a toffel to another food. Okay, cranberry sauce is a condiment that you eat with something else. So that would be another reason to say it doesn't need to be shulchan lachem. So it doesn't need to be b'shrei yisrael. Okay, now a lot of what we just talked about, we're continuing, has to do with Yochanan Shaila, which is about maple syrup. Okay, which is when you take maple syrup, the way you get where does it come from is there are these trees, maple trees, and in Tu B'Shvat the trees start passing sap up from down on the bottom up to the trees to start them growing again. So when that sap starts flowing, they take some of the sap out. They take some of that sap out, and the sap is basically water with a little sugar in it. Okay, it has a little sweetness to it. Okay, it probably has other things also. Has some sugar to it. Okay, and then that what's called maple water. They take that water and they concentrate it. They remove a lot of that water and leaving just the sugary part of it, or a higher concentration of sugar. And now we have what we call maple syrup. Okay, so the question is whether that should need b'shrei yisrael. It has to go through a cooking. Okay, it's cooked, it's filtered, and then eventually it's cooked to make it into this what we call maple syrup. Okay, so before we move on, a first thought you say is maybe it's not cooked at all. Maybe it's just concentrated. We're just removing water. We're not cooking it. Okay, you might think that maybe we're just concentrating means just taking water out of it. So to make it from 2% sugar to 30% sugar or whatever the count is, I'm just removing water. Maybe that's not bishul at all. Okay, so that's that what?
Why don't you use Reb Shlomo?
I'm coming to that. I'm going to talk about that. But before I got to that, I'm just trying to say is maybe you'll tell me. What do you say?
If it's the only way, if that's the way everyone does it, to concentrate it is by being mevashel.
Okay, you could say that there's a better answer. And the better answer is that it's not really just concentration. Okay, when the sap comes, the syrup, right? When the syrup comes out of the tree, it's reasonably clear. Okay, and how come the maple syrup you buy is dark? Okay, it's yellow, brown, depending on how they do it. It comes out dark, and that's because there's what's called a Maillard browning reaction. The sugar is becoming caramelized, okay, and that's why it has the darker color, and that affects the flavor very much so. It very much affects the flavor. So it's not just a concentration; they're actually changing the flavor of the original to what it is now to make this syrup that doesn't taste just like the sugary water that had just had a stronger concentration. It actually has a different taste. Okay, so the original reason I told you, which was that maybe it's nechachai because it is edible. It really is edible at the beginning, but there's nobody who does. There's an industry now. People are starting to sell maple water. There's such a thing. People are starting to it, but it's a very small, very niche. Maybe one day it'll be big enough that it'll say it'll be like milk and corn. What? Like whey, right? Yes, well, okay, but over here there's really a business for it. I mean, here there's really a business. If you concentrate it, it turns into something valuable. And yeah, okay, but the reason to be mattered is because it's always oil shulchan as a toffel. Okay, that's this Shulchan Kluger, and therefore nobody again. It's not oil shulchan as maple syrup by itself. It's always eaten on something else, and therefore that's the reason why it should be mattered.
And then couldn't.
Mhm.
So it's still
Okay, so
I was
I'll eat
once at a New England maple place where you see they put the buckets next to the tree and they take it and they steam it and all this stuff. And what they do at the farm, like for the tourists, you get a thing of ice, a bowl full of ice, and they take the hot syrup on the ice and it gets like hard.
Okay.
And you eat it like directly like that.
Like maple
Okay.
candy.
Yeah, but it's not like the little maple candies that
okay,
look like
It's like a shellac.
sugar
It's
cube.
like it's a shell.
Yeah.
okay. Next,
You said before that would be totally my shot before if you use cranberries as an ingredient. So saying according to Shulchan Kluger, it shouldn't help to be nechel chai also as a tuffle.
you want to say it the opposite way?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that works like that also.
It's a two-way street.
Did I gain something from the fact that the guy cooked it for me? I had this thing that I couldn't use beforehand, and now I can use it. So I had a potato, and now he cooked it for me. Now I have something. So I appreciate what he did for me. I could have used it before, and also I didn't gain anything. I could have used it in his salad, or I could have used it by cooking it. So I have two ways to use it. So I don't know if I gain. Nechachai means is that I don't gain so much because he cooked it for me, because I could have used it without that also. Not true. Okay. Okay. Let's move to another food. Okay, we got 3 more foods to do. They're shorter. We're good. But the next one's we're good with time. Okay, mushrooms. Okay, lots of the mushrooms that you're used to, button, oyster mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, they're nechachai, no problem. Everybody eats them raw, and they don't need bishul yisrael if you cook them. Okay, but then there are some fancy mushrooms.
Wash it.
What do you say?
So just make sure you wash
We're not talking about bugs today, and we're not talking about healthy and safety. I'm not talking about that.
Make sure not poisonous.
Okay,
Yeah.
but then there are other ones. I can't pronounce even all of them, but I'll tell you the ones that I know: porcini and portobellos and wood ear mushrooms. Where there are people who eat them raw. For some reason, the vegetarians, I guess, who eat a lot of mushrooms, eat them raw. But most other people cook them. Okay, most other people wouldn't eat them unless when they're raw. So, on the one hand, you say is well, that's better. People eat it raw. Other people like it better cooked. So other people like it better cooked. So that it's nechachai, because it's nechachai. If 3 people would eat it raw and 10 people would eat it only cooked, so then that's just a preference. Okay. My only question on that is whether it's really true. If it's true what I read, I don't know if it's true. If it's true that the people who eat it raw are vegetarians, and the people who don't eat it raw is the people who are non-vegetarians, or the carnivores. Okay.
It's probably the same thing about the milk.
The what?
The Michigan, we eat the raw milk, and the regular people eat.
But no, I don't call them Michigan.
They're not vegetarian.
Right. So over here, if it's vegetarians who eat this, in other words, that means maybe it's a class of people. It's like saying, let's say the people in Boston eat a food raw, and the people in Chicago don't eat it raw. Then each city looked at it differently. Okay, it's 2 different groups.
Region.
Right. But maybe we could divide up. If it would really be true that people who are vegetarian eat it this way, people who are omnivores are not, then maybe that's a different group. I'm not sure about it. Okay. Now another food. Okay, we'll move along. Another food is chestnuts. Okay, not water chestnuts. Okay, water chestnuts has to do with the Shiloh Shulchan Kluger, but chestnuts are eaten at Shulchan Aruch as a dessert at certain times of the year, for sure. And whether and it's also part of the shaila whether they should be nechel chai, and that's because almost everybody eats them roasted. Okay, roasted chestnuts is like a food. You eat them.
Chestnut roasted.
I didn't ask you to sing your songs from your childhood, but
Desserts are a problem.
what do you say?
Desserts are a problem.
We assume that they are. We assume they are. But what?
Chocolate and desserts.
Okay, not today. Not today. I think we talked about it in the past. Chocolate's a liquid anyhow. Okay, so but we've talked about it, I think, in the past.
That's intense.
The question is that it's a preference. You could eat it raw. You really can't eat chestnuts raw. I've done it. You could eat chestnuts raw. And the question is enough people eat it raw to qualify for this thing to say it's really nechel chai? Because people just prefer it in the cooked state, but maybe nobody eats it, and that would be part of this question. Okay, and last is fish. Okay, this is a question people ask all the time, so I'm going to tell it to you. It has to do with nechel chai, and the question is, they say well, everybody knows that fish needs to be Bishul Yisrael, but if you cook nicely, it needs to be Bishul Yisrael. The question is, well, people eat sushi. If people eat sushi, then people are eating it raw, so if it's nechel chai, then it doesn't need to be Bishul Yisrael. Okay, that's a question people ask. So there's 3 reasons why that should not be true. Potentially why it should not be true. I'm not for sure, but 3 reasons why potentially not be true. The first is, we have to really know that most people are willing to eat sushi that has raw fish in it. Okay, like my kids will eat sushi that has vegetables, all types of vegetables and whatever other kinds of chazarai in it, but they won't eat it with raw fish in it. Okay.
I love the way you call vegetables chazarai.
What?
I love the way you call vegetables.
I said vegetables and chazarai and other things, assorted other things that go in there.
Well, I thought as long as we have
That what?
some people eating sweet corn, I don't know. Or
No, because in sweet corn, everybody would consider it edible. Everyone considers it edible. Just I prefer it this way. Over here, the question is: Do most people consider it edible at all? Okay, most. That's I don't know, yes or no, but we'd have to find out. Is it really true? Just the fact that what's the place I'm about that sells sushi? Hamachi sells with raw fish in it. That doesn't mean everybody eat it. I mean, there are people who would eat it. Doesn't mean we're holding by yet.
That means there's a significant.
I think everyone considers it edible.
So the people who eat it think that most people think that it's edible, and the people who don't eat it think that nobody thinks it's
I
edible.
think it's not edible.
But
We'd have to check. We have to find out. I don't.
Most people might consider liver not edible.
What?
Most people, probably like 55% of people would consider
Okay.
liver not edible.
Because they don't like it.
Yeah, it's not, people
Well,
don't
not
like
liking
it, or
it
people
doesn't-
are either they don't like it or they consider it not healthy. But everyone will say that sushi's edible.
But even the
well,
raw.
I guess you like raw sushi.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. So it depends. I don't know the answer.
What?
It's a yes.
The fish they use for raw sushi.
Yes.
The raw fish they use for sushi. It may not be cooked, but it has some kind of
It's a certain grade. It's a certain grade of the fish.
Well, don't they put like stuff on it, like gingers? They do something to it to take down the bacteria. No, there's no processing at all.
No.
But it still
it's not-
comes up because the sushi stores cook that exact sushi and put it in a roll,
And what?
so even if you want to claim it's a different grade, it's a different mint, but it'll be an afkamina for the actual sushi store who's cooking that exact piece that they would serve raw.
That's true. That's a good point. Okay. So now the second reason is people who eat sushi with raw fish in it. But they're klal. Okay, there's such a thing as eating just plain old raw fish. Okay, it's called sashimi. Okay, it's really uncommon in America. People eat that. Most people eat it just as part of a sushi. There's a roll and it has all kinds of things in it, and one of the things in it is this raw fish. So the question is, are people willing to eat raw fish, or they're only willing to eat raw fish together with all these other stuff? Okay, in other words, it adds a strange taste, a taste that etzem they wouldn't want to eat. Just like people eat, there are people putting raw potatoes into salads also.
Like cranberries with sugar?
What do you say?
Like cranberries with sugar and
Because I'm telling you,
raisins?
it's normal. It's not an unusual taste.
No, if you're using cranberries as your craisins as your raya, there's also no one eats it cranberries.
No, because people eat craisins. No, people eat craisins. You're talking about his
but
salad,
Craisins have sugar.
right?
They don't eat raw plain craisins. They only eat it mixed with sugar.
I'm not just okay.
So
I
they
don't.
eat
That's
raw
not the same.
fish mixed with rice.
No, because it's craisins. The overall thing that you're eating is a cranberry
Well,
with a
you
sugar.
make a shahako, but the main thing is a fish, or you make mazonis. I mean, I'd imagine that would play into the same idea. If the main thing is really mazonis, and the fish is just like a flavoring or something to get you some protein, but that's not really the main thing that you're eating. So then you have the same Shlomo Kulu as Svar. It's not like.
Some people say fakir, but fish is not the main thing.
That's what I'm saying. So it would be kaveya.
Yes. Okay. So that was a question. Just no. Here we're not talking about whether the brachas. I'm not sure it's exactly the main thing. The question is, would I be willing? Would people eat raw fish? You say no. People don't like the taste of raw fish. But with the taste of raw fish, with everything else, it is a little bit that I'm willing to tolerate and I can handle it. It flavors it in a way that I can handle, but that's why I wouldn't eat it by itself. Okay.
So why isn't that any different than a condiment? It's the same idea.
Similar. Okay. And the last possible reason is because what Yochanan was hinting at beforehand, which was that maybe the fish that they use to make sushi is fresher, better grade of fish. Okay, and that fish, by the time the regular fish that get cooked is not on the grade that it would have to be nechachai anymore. It's not nechachai. Today it's nechachai. Tomorrow it's not yet holding by that point where not anymore holding where it could be nechachai. So you made a good point, which is Shmuel says yes. So then in fact, if they actually cook that fish, that would be more complicated. Okay, but the question is, so the fact that the sushi grade fish is, even if we would say it would be nechachai, doesn't mean that other fish would qualify and it also be nechachai. Okay.